20-year-old Filipino tennis star Eala has sent Melbourne Park crowds into an absolute frenzy. We'll go live to Ollie Haig, who's in Garden Square for us this evening. Ollie.
The tennis world is currently vibrating with a frequency it has quite literally never experienced before. And at the center of this seismic shift is a 20-year-old Filipino sensation named Eala, whose presence at Melbourne Park and the Dubai Aviation Club has transformed traditional tennis stadiums into something resembling a high-stakes Roman Colosseum or a modern-day rock concert, a phenomenon so intense that it has left even the most seasoned veterans like Rafael Nadal and Coco Gauff in a state of genuine disbelief. To understand the magnitude of what is happening, you have to look past the scoreboards and into the stands where the atmosphere has shifted from polite applause to what experts are calling Beatlemania reborn, a transition that has sparked a fierce global debate about the line between passionate support and match-ruining disruption. When Coco Gauff walked off the court after a grueling 2-hour and 18-minute battle against Elise Mertens, she did something unheard of in professional sports. She looked at a crowd that had shown almost zero interest in her own victory and apologized to her opponent's fans for making them wait to see the real star of the show, Eala. This wasn't just a polite gesture. It was a realization that the power dynamics of the WTA Tour are shifting toward a new kind of superstar, one whose ranking of 47th in the world belies a commercial and cultural gravity that has seen Dubai ticket sales skyrocket by 48% year-on-year. While 18 of the top 20 players in the world were in the draw, the crowds were quite literally roaring from their hotel rooms for a player who hasn't even reached a Grand Slam quarterfinal yet, creating a situation where Jessica Pegula could hear the thundering chants of Eala's name before she even stepped onto the grounds. But beneath the celebratory flags and the handmade signs lies a much darker and more complicated narrative that Gauff touched upon during her post-match press conference, where she pointedly noted that Eala's fans treated her more gently than they had treated other players that week. This was a diplomatic way of addressing the elephant in the room, that the Filipino fanbase, in their intense loyalty to their homegrown hero, was being accused of systematically ruining the matches of Eala's opponents. The most glaring example of this occurred on February 19, 2026, during a round of 16 match between Eala and the seasoned Romanian veteran Sorana Cîrstea at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships. On paper, it was a routine match, but inside the Aviation Club, it was a psychological battlefield where every single unforced error from Cîrstea was met with thunderous cheers and every missed first serve, a cardinal sin in tennis etiquette, was celebrated like a championship point. The referee, a man who has officiated matches for Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, and Rafael Nadal himself at this very venue, described the atmosphere as something he had genuinely never witnessed in his entire career, stating that even the legendary rivalries of the Big Three did not produce this specific brand of volatile partisan energy. What makes this story even more uncomfortable is the silence of the players involved. Sorana Cîrstea, who is known for being incredibly vocal about crowd misconduct and had previously complained about Naomi Osaka's grunting at the Australian Open, said absolutely nothing after her loss to Eala. This silence carries an immense weight because it suggests a player who has calculated that the backlash from speaking out against such a massive and nationalistic fan base is simply not worth the risk, creating a culture of intimidation that goes beyond the physical boundaries of the court. The Tennis Gazette was much more direct, labeling the behavior of Eala's fans as a step too far, specifically citing the cheering of missed serves and noise-making during active rallies as violations that compromise the integrity of the sport. However, the complexity of this situation arises from the fact that many of these fans are entirely new to tennis, brought to the stadiums by the historic rise of the first-ever Filipino player to reach this elite level. The WTA has even had to post educational content on social media explaining the basic rules of the game, such as what a hard court is and why silence is required during play, suggesting that the disruptive behavior might not be born of malice, but of a simple lack of familiarity with the sport's Victorian-era etiquette. This brings us to the Rafael Nadal connection, which adds a layer of prestige and shock to the entire controversy, as Eala is a product of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca and was handpicked by the legend himself for his first practice session after his 2024 retirement. To see a player groomed in the image of Nadal, a man who defines sportsmanship and respect, becoming the center of a crowd control crisis is a paradox that the tennis world is struggling to reconcile. Nadal's own shock stems from the fact that his academy's goal was to produce a champion, but they have instead helped ignite a cultural movement that the sport's infrastructure isn't prepared to handle. Even Coco Gauff's strategy during her match against Eala was telling. She admitted to pretending the crowd noise was for her just to survive the mental pressure, a defensive psychological tactic that highlights how oppressive the environment has become for anyone standing on the other side of the net. As Eala's ranking continues to climb and she moves toward becoming a seeded player at Grand Slams, the question remains, is this level of support a blessing that will propel her to the top, or a burden that will eventually lead to tournament-wide restrictions? The Dubai tournament officials saw record-breaking revenue, but at what cost to the spirit of the game? When commentators like Gigi Salman compare these matches to Taylor Swift concerts, they are acknowledging a level of fame that tennis has rarely seen, but they are also warning of a future where the actual sport becomes secondary to the spectacle. The evidence of crowd management failure in Dubai is documented, from the placards asking for quiet that were ignored to the eventual need for direct microphone interventions to stop the chanting midpoint. Alex Eala herself remains a figure of grace, handling the fame with gratitude and never encouraging her fans to be disrespectful. Yet she is now the face of a movement that is dividing the tennis world into those who welcome the new energy and those who fear it will destroy the game's traditional foundations. This is no longer just a story about a talented young player. It is a story about the collision of a global sport and a national identity, a collision that has left icons like Nadal in shock and top players like Goff apologizing for their own victories. If the trajectory of Eala's career continues on this path, the tennis world will have to decide very quickly how to balance the commercial goldmine of her fan base with the necessity of a fair and professional playing environment. As we watch this story get genuinely uncomfortable, it becomes clear that the silence of opponents, the record-breaking ticket sales, and the warnings from veteran referees are all pointing toward a turning point for the WTA. The line between a passionate crowd and a disruptive one was not just crossed in Dubai. It was erased entirely, and as Eala prepares for the next major stage, the eyes of the world will be on the stands just as much as they are on the court to see if the sport can survive its own popularity. This is the reality of the Alex Eala phenomenon, a story of unprecedented success shadowed by a controversy that refuses to go away, proving that in the modern era of sports, the fans can be just as powerful and just as dangerous as the players themselves. To keep up with the deep dive analysis of how this situation evolves and what it means for the future of professional tennis, you need to stay tuned, because what happened in Dubai is only the beginning of a saga that will redefine the sport for the next generation. We will continue to track every development, every press conference whisper, and every statistical jump to provide you with the full picture that the highlight reels simply cannot capture. If you want to understand the true cost of fame in the modern game and why the biggest names in the sport are currently looking at Alex Eala with a mixture of awe and apprehension, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. Every week, we go past the scoreline to uncover the stories that actually matter, the stories that shape the culture of the sport we love, and the stories that the mainstream media is often too afraid to touch in their entirety. Share this video with anyone who thinks they know the full story of what happened in Dubai, because as we've seen, the truth is far more complex than just a win or a loss. It's about the soul of tennis itself. Thank you for being part of this community where we value depth, context, and the raw reality of the professional tour. And we will see you in the next one as we continue to explore the most fascinating and controversial corners of the sporting world. The Alex Eala era has officially begun, and whether the tennis establishment is ready for it or not, the noise is only going to get louder from here. So stay informed and stay with us for the most comprehensive coverage of this historic shift in the game's history. This isn't just about one player or one country. It's about the evolution of a global icon and the growing pains of a sport trying to find its way in a new, loud, and unpredictable world where the boundaries are constantly being pushed by a fan base that knows no limits. As Eala ascends, the pressure on tournament directors and the WTA to establish new protocols will reach a breaking point, and we will be here to document every moment of that transition, ensuring you never miss a beat in this incredible, high-stakes journey. Final word to the fans. Your passion is the heartbeat of the sport, but the question remains, can that heartbeat become too loud for the game to breathe? We'll find out soon enough.